Hey, it's Oba. Let's talk about the Stage 3 finals, specifically Map 2. Alright, so let's talk about New York's comp real quick. They're coming out with an old school cheese strat, which is this Bastion here. Generally, we'd see it versus another tank lineup, so, you know, Reinhardt, Diva, Zarya, that kind of stuff. Which leads me to believe that Nixel is thinking that Boston is actually going to be running tanks. However, as we can see over here, they're not. Or they're looking to throw Boston off with the off-meta comp. I don't like this line of play coming out from Nixel because they can accomplish the same goal of the tank killing with simply swapping the Bastion to a Junkrat. Junkrat has a much better time dealing with Boston's composition in general, that being the Tracer and denying the space for the McCree, while also being a threat to Striker, Note, and Gamsu when they attempt to dive. And onto Boston's composition, which is just a standard counter dive, they're going to be swapping the Lucio to a Mercy just to do the little boost out of spawn. This comp is just all around good on Village because they have the flexibility to answer the Pharah while also being okay versus a heavy tank composition and also great versus dive. But let's play this out.
They've got that mental strength to get it done.
Let's get it! Bastion on Village! This is a strategy that is rare, but it's not entirely new. It happens on occasion. Short Boars run this on different teams as well. The Bastion on the high ground, and Boston should...
Alright, so real quick, Boston backed up there because they know they can't push in to the Bastion, so they're looking to rotate to point.
Should be going right back, but losing Jonak early on really hurts. That might tell Boston that they should go for this. It's going to have to be Note initiating the dive and getting into this with the defense matrix, or they can just ignore it and go to the point, which is what they're doing.
It is exactly, they're rapping right now. Libero just firing blind, expecting them to go through the doorway here. Are they going to be able to drop Libero into a position where he can get some fire onto that point, help his teammates?
Make note of Boston's positioning. They've got a great plan against this surprise Bastion. They've spread themselves out in a way that when Nixel is going to be dropping down to point here, they're going to be surrounded. The main goal for Boston at this point is to get around Nixel and start chipping away at them from every angle.
Teammates out, as yes, it is going to be them moving together. All three as a unit. Libero, point blank, just unloading on them. They will give ground here, Boston Uprising. Not quite able to hang in here as Gamsu gets overwhelmed with the help of Mako, and it is going to be this hard point defense in the corner, just setting them up with a Bionade to help from Jonak, making all the difference here. That additional healing allows for New York Excel to withstand the push coming in from Boston.
They have finally taken down Libero on the Bastion, though.
So just to reiterate, Boston's done a great job already, but again, they've got multiple angles of attack coming in here, which really throws off Nixel's offense.
They will also get the Diva out of the mix too, so now got a couple of ults that do fly in here. They're going for it. Mistakes is going to have Deadeye to zone it out. He waits and takes down Jonak.
Perfect. Thought that he might even catch Enemo there, but it's not going to happen, and they're going to get that flip. Very quick flip coming in here from Boston Uprising. Very quick adjustments made.
Oh, look at this.
So Nixel's swapping to hard dive here, which is a good call, while keeping Jonak and Ana because he's close to Nano. The Nano is particularly effective either on Mano or Neko. Coming into this fight, Nixel's hoping to equalize their ult deficit, because as we can see, Boston is massively ahead in terms of ults.
Well, look at this economy now too, that New York cannot stay on these heroes, so they're going to have to switch off of it onto a different composition. Boston, I mentioned them being patient, and also when they see something, there's like, nah, let's just adjust and go. They saw the Bastion and they just said, nah.
Yeah,
nah.
Actually.
We're gonna go to the point, and you can come deal with us later.
This is so fun. This is high-level Overwatch. This is what we've all been waiting for here. As it is going to be the boost coming in here onto Mono. Just leaps in, and that's not going to help him. He gets focus fired so quickly, doesn't know what hit him. Mono out of the fight already here for New York, and that's definitely going to slow him down. They're going to back up, and well, Gamsu's not going to let him back out of here for free. Look at all of this chain damage he's doing.
He had his Tracer there with him. They were looking to get...
This fight was the result of a bad re-engage by Mano. In particular, it was Rush, so when he dove in, he just died alone, and his team didn't have cooldowns. He's feeling rushed because Nano was ticking down on him. However, after the first engage, it's no longer relevant, because as we saw, you can't dive alone. It's important to play with your team and play off of not only your cooldowns, but their cooldowns.
Looking to get some staggering kills into that. Jonak is staying on this Ana. He's a very, very capable Ana. It's one of his best heroes.
I don't like Nixel staying on the Ana here. Swapping to a Zen would have a much more immediate effect on this upcoming fight, specifically with the Discord Orb enabling the hard dive composition that Nixel has set up. And we'll see in the upcoming fight, Boston is going to be able to out-pressure Nixel because they have a Discord Orb and Nixel doesn't have their Nano.
We know him as the Zenyatta in the Overwatch League. This is an interesting play. I thought maybe after the boost they would switch onto the Zenyatta. He's been so good on that hero. But they continue to want to run this. It's a modified dive. Of course, the dive with Ana and Mercy.
He's so aggressive, even on Ana though. He's still out there hunting for shots. You know, he's like, I can't follow you, but I can still snipe you. I like it. I like it. Mistakes finds the kill on Sebiobi though. Right now, New York Excel aren't really figuring out how to make progress on this attack as they get up to 67% now for Boston Uprising. This is getting into that one fight territory now for Boston where they're going to be feeling pretty good.
They're going to have to re-engage at some point, probably with the Valkyrie, but the problem is you're going to have to Valkyrie.
So New York is committed to the second Nano, pairing it with Libero's upcoming Blade. On top of that, Animo's Valk enables Libero to one-shot squishies during his Blade. This is a neat combo because it can kill through Neko's Trans, effectively making that Trans a waste. And it's a very clear win condition for Nixel. However, this is not viable for 3 reasons. It took an extremely long time to set up. As we can see here, it's already 76. By the end of this fight, we'll actually see it being 99. So committing this amount of time to a combo that almost guarantees a fight win is just not worth it. As well as it's 3 ultimates, so if Libero gets shut down immediately, the fight is just lost. And lastly, Zenyatta's Discord can actually achieve a similar outcome. However, instead of just the single slash, it will require the dash/slash combo.
Valkyrie into the Deadeye, so you try to just stay low ground and stay on the point with the Valkyrie. There's no way you can be up in the sky. Mistakes will find you.
See, in terms of positioning, Mistakes is thinking exactly that. If he's gonna...
I just wanted to point out the really cool ultimate usage by Mistakes here. So as we can see, he split up the Nixel dive before it even began. So you've got Mano and Meko up here, whereas Libero and the rest of the team is actually stuck back here.
Go to the sky. Well, it is going to be it. Libero gets boosted. He's got the Dragon Blade, and this is exactly what he was hoping for. Flashbang not going to be quick enough. Kellex is dead. So much damage, but then Mistakes with the headshot. Point blank on Libero. Drops him. No, will get the self-destruct off for a fresh match. No problem there. Striker gets overwhelmed, though. And right now, New York, they are finding their openings. They are getting the damage in.
Finally get some kills here, but Mistakes still alive into this. He's trying to get the Baby Diva, unable to do so. Him and Ana did not expect to see each other there. Flash and fan.
Oh, was thinking, but that bubble, nick of time. Great play from Mano to keep his team alive. And Libero finds Neko, and this is definitely looking like a decent situation for New York. They've got 4 alive on this point, taking their time to remove Note. Now Gamsu, Striker, and Kellex gonna have to back off here. It's gonna get a bit too hot for them on the point.
Boston was in a great spot there, but Sebiobi is able to...
What won Nixel that fight was having the res advantage and Mano taking Mistakes out of the fight. We're also going to see Jonak come out as Zen for the rest of this map.
Cut Kellex off from the rest of his team and then finish the kill onto him. New York will flip it back around. And now Boston, only 1 fight away, 99% here on Nepal. But New York has gotten themselves in a good position as well. Both Valkyries should be up at about the same time. I want to look at this micro battle between Sebiobi and Mistakes.
Yeah, I love it. And look at it, Sebiobi, he was thinking, if they're going to come through here grouped up, I'm definitely going to go for the post play. Not quite going to find it. Does get the stick. Beautiful work, but Gamsu survives by thread here. He is going to be, no, he gets overwhelmed by Mako, who hunts him down. It will be the trade, 1 for 1. Gamsu gets rezzed up here by Kellex, who got the wings out. Animo has got the wings as well. Getting the chain heals, trying to keep them alive, and they are sticking together as a good unit here in New York. Mano isn't deep in enemy territory, but he will get backed up here soon. Libero's got the blade, and with Note, or rather Neko...
Now this is the turning point in the fight. Neko has committed the Transcendence to save himself and keep Note in mech. However, this is a bad play because Note has the bomb, and Libero has his blade coming up. Using Trans like this puts a lot of pressure on Mistakes to shut down the blade that's about to come out, which is not a very realistic thing to expect of him. On top of that, Jonak has Trans himself, which will allow Nixel to just walk into Boston after their Trans is up. So what I'm trying to say is that this fight comes down to ultimate value, which at this point, Nixel has Boston beat.
Using the Trance, that opens it up here for Libero.
Perfect.
Oh, no, he gets knocked! Oh, what perfect timing! Mano, the hero!
Libero goes down, but that is the only kill that they get. It was such great timing from Libero. He saw the Primal Rage Winston. He's like, I'll wait for that to go away. He saw the Transcend. I'll wait for that to go away. No one expects the Winston from behind, knocking him off course, but it does not matter in the end as the rest of Excelsior pick up the slack. Both support ultimates used, not coming through this fight.
That is so frustrating, right? If you're Genji, you're just like, it is my time! It is my time to shine, let's go!
You
Oh
can
no!
see the thought process.
I like this retake by Boston because the surprise McCree on high ground can easily result in a kill, and even if it doesn't, it forces low ground for Nixel. That being said, Mistakes does multiple things wrong here, however, the biggest thing is that he actually doesn't kill Jonak over here. After his high noon, he rotates up and over and above New York's backline, whereas instead he should have moved towards his team to regroup after getting the pick on the Zenyatta. Also note that while all this is going on, Libero is in the backline, meaning he's not up front to either deflect, and Meko, which is right over here on point, isn't able to matrix everything.
Process too. He's like, all right, well, that's gonna mess me up, so I'll go in now, and I still gets messed up.
Yeah, Mistakes, we swap off of the Deadeye there. Mistakes had a target.
Striker dying here is actually totally fine because he's contesting point, and if anything, I'd give him bonus points for dying in a very resible position.
Definitely not going to pull the trigger there. Note will find Libero though, so no longer the Genji, but Mako runs Striker over, and Mono finds the kill on Mistakes. 99 to 99, and now it's going to be the big fight here in New York Excel. Right now they're pulling ahead. Note finds the kill on Mako, but Jonak is there, back on his trusty's end. Kelix and Nako dead, and this is falling apart now for Boston Uprising, and it is a winnable situation for New York, and the overtime wick burns down Striker. Gets back on the point in the nick of time, hoping to keep it alive, but that's going to be it. New York will pick up the point lead here.
While you could chalk this fight up to personal mistakes, I would argue it's more of a lack of patience on the side of Boston. Libero essentially dies for free here, and rather than regrouping, Mistakes goes for an individual play which costs him his life, evening out the fight. Whereas instead, like I mentioned, he could have just regrouped with his team and played the man advantage.
And that is definitely going to help New York here as the fight continues. We move on now to the next point. Boston Uprising have to figure it out.
Sanctum incoming here, so we're going to see some Junkrat and Widow.
Before we get into the rest of this map, I want to talk about compositions. So, as we can see, a very standard sort of Sanctum composition, Boston and New York mirroring each other. Now, when it comes down to playing mirror, control of the point is actually going to be revolving around control of the fountain area. So this upper area with the fountain in it. We're going to see fights won and lost depending on how each team is playing this area. Putting your Junkrat in here denies the flank through the room, while also opening the flank path from underneath onto point. So when the enemy team holds fountain, you still want your Junkrat to play your doorway to either distract, retake fountain if the enemy Junkrat leaves for whatever reason, or follow the enemy Junkrat when he drops down to flank.
On both sides of things. Oddly enough, the Striker Junkrat leads the league in a great deal of categories. We talk about him as a tracer, but he is up there amongst the best junks so far in stage 3.
Very good at throwing nades. It's Libero himself. There we go. The mine to the face, Libero.
New York doesn't care about initial point control. They're actually looking for a pick on Striker through fountain. Once they've cleared out Striker from fountain, they're able to put Libero in there. However, Libero decides to actually rotate to point to apply a lot of shield pressure.
Maxed out. Definitely uncomfortable. The halts, hints, and mine combo. We're seeing it all the time. I'm loving it. Once we get that Orisa in, there's some clever plays possible. But Gamsu's already set up shop here on the point as it becomes unlocked.
After shooting Boston's shield a couple of times, he's actually going to be rotating back to fountain, where he's got the room for free, essentially mind gaming Striker out of there.
And New York is going to have to rotate around to start contesting this.
It's just complete squad play. You've got 4 on the right side, and then the Widow and Zenyatas are working together on both teams on both sides. They're all over the place. This top-down is super interesting. They're just peeking in the corner. Sabiobi has no designs of going after Mistakes. It's like they're playing their own game over here.
And
Look at this. You see the crossfire coming in from both sides there. They're just launching it all at the point.
It's just orbs flying in. And well, eventually it's going to be Striker pulling ahead. Kelix gets caught by Sabiobi, and Sabiobi decides now's the time to try and take the fight. Can he find an angle here? Striker out in the open. Gets laid low. And Sabiobi, yes, one step ahead of Mistakes. Waiting for him like the spider.
The real issue this fight is that Striker does not take this room and hold it after the initial push away, which enables Libero to take that room and eventually flank from underneath, killing the Boston front line.
And of course, Sabiobi just crushed it there. Libero can play a good Widow as well. You're not safe. The versatility on this team. And it's versatility because anyone can pick up any hero at any time. The only reason Pine's not in is because they just want the versatility of Libero.
They want the options for the projectiles.
This attack route is very common because it pushes the enemy Junkrat out of Fountain, while also giving your Junkrat the Fountain position. However, Striker decides to back up from this position and tire.
Well, there you have it. Alright, let's see. This is going to be 30% and counting now for New York Excel. Boston Uprising. Once again, Gamsu kind of setting up that hard point behind the shield. He's getting backed up by Note as both of the Divas are just zooming all over the place. Striker looking for the angle here. He does have his tire, and yep, both tires going to be thrown into it. Libero finds Nako. That's a valuable kill. And we will. Even
though Libero gets a higher value tire, it didn't matter because Striker gains Fountain control while Libero is being rezzed, where he'll preoccupy Libero for a while, eventually leading to a flank from underneath.
Striker finding Libero. So back and forth. Calyx gets the res off though, so now Nako's back into it. Libero brought back to life as well, so we're kind of reset, but fight continues on the point. And this time, Jonak out in the open will not survive Nako with the volley headshot.
Still keeping everyone alive though. They're going to touch onto the point here. They've got their Orisa down there. The Mercy will be joining them if they should so need it. Animo's going to bail out of this one. He has yet to die this map, and he's going to
your DPS up. So now it is going to be Boston Uprising here, 25% and counting. See if they're going to be able to hold this next push as New York Excel. They've got Saviobi and Mistakes both on this.
So Nixel goes for the same attack route that Boston just did. I didn't mention in the previous fight because it wasn't relevant to the outcome, but because everyone is jumping down through Fountain except the Widow, it creates a crossfire for the attacking team. In this case, Saviobi is able to take shots at Boston's front line while also threatening Calyx off of assisting. Meanwhile, you've got Mistakes over here at the top left, unable to shoot anything because he neither has LOS of Saviobi or New York underneath.
He's got his trance as well.
It's very likely they don't even engage. Now they're going to actually pop Transcendence and come back in here now. Gamsu.
Libero made a terrible mistake in dropping with his team here, giving up control of Fountain. Striker's now able to completely flank behind New York with his tire. I can't stress enough how important control of Fountain is, but don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you're unable to push out of it, it's just that you need control of this area. Because as we just saw, these kinds of flanks are just going to keep happening if no one is controlling that area.
Will go down, putting pressure on the point. Both support ultimates now out, but that's a huge tire that might save it for Boston. They'd invested a lot in that fight, had to win it.
Now Mako chucks himself off the side, and it is going to be Boston withstanding it for now. They're nearly tied up, 50% and on.
Poor Animo, first death of the entire map now. Sometimes
you gotta slow him down.
Heroes,
he's still pulling ahead of Calyx in terms of heals.
Look, heroes sometimes die. Let's not get into false advertising.
We see it all the time. We see it all the time, especially when you've got Saviobi out on the map right now hunting. And well, that is a big self-destruct. Mono's supercharger goes boom, but Libero gone as well.
They're going to come back into this. They want to res, they want to try to fight right now because it's at 80%. You might not have perfect timing for a regroup. And another nice kill onto Gamsu. But Striker is going off. He gets himself another 2. And they're going to have to regroup a little bit here. They're probably going to wait it out. Meko can always touch the point if they need it. 90% and counting up for Boston Uprising.
Yeah, now Mono swapped it up, so he's going to be back in the fight on Winston, just throwing himself in.
So New York decided to swap to the Winston, which in my opinion is a fine pick. The past few fights didn't go in their favor, so why not switch it up a little, make Boston react to them. In particular, the Winston's going to enable Saviobi to peek more aggressively because Mano's actually going to be distracting Mistakes, which means New York is going to have a higher chance at crucial picks because Saviobi doesn't have to worry too much about the Widow 1v1. We're going to see a great dive coming out, and I know this is sort of creeping into being narrative, but I just wanted to point out that we don't see dives like this. Mano is able to get right up into Boston without his position being scouted. The tire is used in such a way that No would actually be risking his mech if he were to scout on Pillar's side, which is why Mano is able to get in so easily.
Trying to lead it open, trying to create some space for his team to work with here. He is finding these angles, needs to kind of dodge around, doesn't want it to get killed, and well, sure enough, no pounces on it, but in the meantime, Saviobi has found Calyx, Neko dead as well.
The problem with your Diva going after that tire is it leaves everyone else exposed, and they absolutely capitalize on it. Animo kills Striker, resurrects Jonak. I mean, we talk so much about Ark, and he's played much more than Animo, but he's having a mercy game of his life right now.
And there it is, the flip. 99% for Boston Uprising. Now it's on New York Excel to hold. They're doing a fantastic job right now. Savioli is playing out of his mind.
Yeah.
You got Striker. You've seen a lot of Striker in the kill feed. He's at 12 final blows. Savioli, he's sitting at...
Take note of Nixel's positioning here. They're playing close to force Boston's cooldowns before they can even think about touching point, slowing down the advance and making this the last fight. New York can get away with this because Boston has opted to stay on the Orisa instead of swapping to a Winston. Frankly, I don't think this is the play because retaking on Orisa is very difficult, and Boston is going to be used because of how slow they are.
At 16 and continuing. I mean, he's just taking the lead right now. He is doing so much work for New York.
He also only has 2 deaths. The next nearest non-Animo player has 5 deaths on the other side, and that's Neko. They're simply not killing Savioli.
Yeah, they are in the lead right now in terms of kills. New York Excel. Mako doing a great job right now hanging in here. He will get on that point. 90% now, and there we go. Striker with the entire kill on Mono. Savioli and Libero doing work. Yet again, Kelix falls. Gamsu, the next one to follow suit. Savioli right now continues to deliver for the New York Excel, and that could make all of the difference. You're losing heals, doesn't matter. Savioli's here to kill your whole team.
Meko goes right after him, says, get off my point. They've got Neko stuck in the corner. Transcend is just the victory light to light the way as New York is knocking everyone off.
Nearly knocks him into the murder chasm. That was so close. Mistakes out of it as well, and the New York Excel will take the lead and maintain it in this grand finals. 2 maps.
So let's talk about what went right and what went wrong. One of the largest issues Boston had there was Striker constantly giving up control of the fountain. In cases where he was given the room on a silver platter and refused to take it, either backing up out of the room and giving it to Libero, or just backing up and making it an even playing field. Instead, it would have been much better for Striker to stay in that room so he could at least threaten New York's front line with the flank. The Winston swap by Mano caught Boston completely off guard. You don't see last fight swaps be so impactful, which is why I was really surprised when Boston didn't swap themselves. And you can't even begin to argue that Bongo was going to save them that fight, because that ultimate is not a very high impact ultimate. One last thing that I didn't mention before was that when Nixel lost fights, they were losing them very quickly and generally not an entire team wipe, which allowed them to feed less ultimate to Boston while also having a higher ultimate generation themselves. The shining example of this is when Animo is being played. For reference, I think he died maybe twice this entire map. If you'd like to take a look at my notes or check out some pictures that I didn't include in the video, the link is in the description. Otherwise, thanks for watching.